My name is Phil and I'm the Education Officer at Swansea Museum. This short film is a brief look at some of the objects, images and photos associated with historical campaigns in Swansea and beyond. If we go back a few hundred years, we'll find campaigns by the Chartists who tried to get equal votes and rights for working men. There were also protests such as Rebecca rioters, poor Welsh farmers who dressed up in women's clothes and attacked the toll gates, who charged them to use roads in West Wales. These roads were the only ways they could get their crops to market. As a result of the Chartists and other campaigns, we now all have the vote if we're over 18. So people come together with ideas for change or ideas to make things fairer for all. And these can be local campaigns, national or international. They can be done through different means like demonstrations, petitions, or just getting your message out via social media. Of course, social media is quite new, but before social media you could always get your message out via a t-shirt. This child's t-shirt is from 1987 and it says, "Save Swansea Museum." At the time it was looking like the museum may have to close as the founding organisation was running into financial difficulty. But local action resulted in Swansea Council agreeing to take it over, so we are still surviving to this day. Another example of a local campaign was anti-corruption in 1970s Swansea. And this was led mainly by an anarchist group. In the mid-1970s, many Swansea residents woke up to find this pamphlet had been posted through their letterbox in the middle of the night. Its title was "The Swansea Mafia at Work," and inside there were various allegations of corruption involving prominent citizens. Much of it was true, and several people were later arrested, charged and jailed. This led to a weekly newspaper called Alarm, which was sold on the streets and pubs of Swansea for 2p. And later, the people who started the Alarm newspaper were actually involved in setting up a national anarchist newspaper called Class War. Up until 100 years ago, women did not have the vote, and there was a long-running campaign. The women were called suffragettes. This poster in the museum is over 100 years old. Posters look a bit different today, usually less words and more colourful. And this is a suffragette with a placard, and the placard is demanding Parliament change the law now. The woman is being carefully watched over by a police officer, and with good reason. The more radical suffragette groups were not adverse to direct action, including putting shop windows through. One attacked Winston Churchill with a horsewhip in Bristol, and even the occasional bomb was planted. This photo is one of the demonstrations in Swansea. This is the top of Wine Street. The big building on the right is no longer there. So if you were looking at that image now, in the background, you would be looking at Castle Gardens. The Women's Freedom League were one of the suffragette groups. In a long campaign, colours or symbols can become very important. 100 years ago, if you saw someone wearing a badge or item of clothing or jewellery in those colours, you knew that they supported the women in their right for the vote. This is another example, a scarf in the colours of the suffragettes. Another example of colour and symbols being important is the rainbow, used by the LGBT community to campaign for equal rights. This is a promotion poster for Pride 2019, and this is one for an earlier event looking at various issues, but before the LGBT community adopted the rainbow colours. And here is an example of a campaign group supporting another campaign. The LGBT community here are raising money for the miners' strike in 1984. On the subject of the miners' strike, this photo is a demonstration from 1984 as well, outside the Welsh office. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister at the time, and some years earlier she was Secretary of State for Education, and she stopped free milk in school. A strong message, therefore, around denying children food was put together. And this poster is quite a powerful image, as they've used a photo captured by a journalist to highlight the brutality of the strike. Of course, you could also achieve a lot through a sense of humour. This poster was on my wall when I was a student. It's now in the museum collection. It was produced by the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. I've also seen this image in various formats on Facebook and social media over the last few years, usually to highlight MP expense scandals. So, can we make a difference still? Well, yeah, we can. This is a great image of a child standing outside St Helens Cricket and Rugby Ground in Swansea. The South African cricket team are in Swansea on a tour. This is 1965, and he's protesting on his own against the government in South Africa, which at the time kept their citizens and black citizens segregated and discriminated against black people. In fact, you would have had to have been white to play cricket for South Africa, and the system was called apartheid. Now this is 4 years later in 1969, and we're in the same place, and there are thousands of people protesting at the same spot trying to stop a rugby match between South Africa and Swansea. So the campaign has taken off in 4 years. If you look at the placard on the left, this is another one which is in the museum collection. So the campaign was a success and equality was achieved in South Africa in 1994. However, discrimination still goes on, racism still goes on, and people are still campaigning for justice, as can be seen in this last photo, the most recent demonstration in Swansea in support of Black Lives Matter.